I left my land untouched for 5 years. When I finally came back, there was a house sitting on it. Not a shed or a temporary structure. A full modern home with clean stucco walls, a concrete foundation, and a paved driveway cutting through what used to be open desert ground. I figured the woman living there would at least look embarrassed. Instead, she stared me down and told me I was trespassing on my own property. My name is Jack Harlan. I'm 62 now, retired after 35 years managing construction sites across the West. 5 years ago, I was done with it all. Done with city ordinances dictating how short my lawn had to be. Done with neighbors who treated every minor difference as a declaration of war. Done with rules written by people who never got their hands dirty. I sold the house in Denver, cashed out what I had, and bought 20 acres of raw land in Central Oregon, out where the nearest town is 30 miles of winding road away. No subdivisions, no shared fences, and most important, no homeowners association telling me what color I could paint my door. I checked everything before I signed. Walked the boundaries myself with a handheld GPS, studied the county plat maps, pulled the tax history, made sure there were no hidden easements or restrictions sneaking up on me later. The deed was clean, the title clear. I paid cash and felt, for the first time in years, like I truly owned something outright. I spent the first couple of seasons making the place livable, built a modest cabin, installed solar panels, drilled a well deep enough to last. Then life pulled me away. My younger sister was diagnosed with cancer, and after she passed, my brother went through a rough divorce and needed someone to lean on. Obligations stacked up, and before I knew it, 5 years had gone by. But I never let the place go. Property taxes were set to autopay every year without fail. Insurance stayed active. And out of old habit from too many job site disputes, I mounted 2 solar-powered trail cameras high in the Ponderosa Pines, angled toward the main access points. I wasn't paranoid. I was just prepared. When I finally turned down that familiar gravel road again, dust rising behind my old Ford pickup, I was looking forward to nothing more dramatic than sweeping cobwebs out of the cabin and listening to coyotes at night. What I found stopped me cold. The house was new, clean lines, fresh landscaping, gravel beds, trimmed junipers, everything manicured like it belonged in a magazine. And standing beside the driveway was a woman in her mid-50s, arms crossed, sunglasses on, posture saying she had been expecting company. I shut off the engine and stepped out. Before I could get a word in, she spoke first. "You can't park there. This is my land," I said, keeping my tone level. She shook her head slowly, the way a teacher corrects a slow student. "No, sir. This is Willow Ridge Estates. You're on community property." The words landed like a slap. This parcel has never been part of any association. Her smile was thin and practiced. "It is now." She introduced herself as Margaret Ellis, president of the Willow Ridge Homeowners Association. "If I intended to stay," she said, "I would need to follow the community standards like everyone else." I didn't argue right then. I told her I'd be in touch, climbed back in the truck, and drove off. But my mind was already working. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived by certified mail. Inside was an official notice declaring my land incorporated into Willow Ridge Estates. I owed 5 years of dues, late fees, and assessments. Attached was a glossy map showing updated boundaries that shifted my eastern line inward just far enough to place Margaret's entire backyard, patio, sunroom, part of the garage, comfortably inside the community. I laid my original survey next to their map on the kitchen table. The forgery was subtle but unmistakable. Their line crept across mine like a thief in the night. I started with the county records. Parcel boundaries unchanged. No recorded amendment. Tax maps identical to the day I bought the place. Building permits for Margaret's house existed, but the site plan attached was based on an old internal draft that had never been officially filed. Metadata showed it was created years earlier by a planning technician who later left county employment under a cloud. I called an old colleague, Tom Whitaker, a licensed surveyor I'd trusted on a dozen projects. Tom spent a full day running new lines, flying a drone for overhead imagery, and comparing everything to the recorded plat. When he overlaid the data on his tablet, the picture was undeniable. Approximately 800 square feet of Margaret's home sat firmly on my side of the legal boundary. Tom set up his tripod right where the patio concrete crossed the line, pulled a bright orange survey stake from his truck, and drove it deep into the ground with a sledgehammer. Each strike echoed off the stucco walls. He stepped back, wiped his hands, and said quietly, "Just so there's no confusion." That evening, I finally downloaded the memory cards from the trail cameras. What I saw turned my stomach. Clip after clip from 3 years earlier. Margaret pacing near the old oak that marked my corner, phone to her ear. "He's been gone forever. Nobody's seen him in years. Just shift the layout like we talked about. I'll deal with the owner if he ever comes back." Another day, different contractor. "Move it a few more feet. Nobody measures twice around here." And the clearest one, Margaret pointing at wooden stakes already in the ground. "That's the map we're using," she told the hesitant crew chief when he questioned the placement. I made multiple backups of every file. Then the games began. One morning, I woke to the stench of rotting garbage. 3 split trash bags had been dumped beside my shed. Food scraps, broken glass, coffee grounds crawling with flies. The camera caught a man in a dark hoodie jogging away at 2:37 a.m. The sheriff picked him up 2 days later. He admitted Margaret paid him $60 cash for the job. Next came a barrage of HOA emails, sanitation violations, health hazards, complaints about my aggressive dog. My dog is a 14-year-old yellow lab who sleeps 20 hours a day and has never hurt a soul. Margaret was no longer pretending this was a misunderstanding. She was trying to make my life miserable enough that I'd sell cheap or walk away. I documented everything: photos, timestamps, sheriff incident numbers. I stayed calm on the outside because I knew anger loses court cases. Inside Willow Ridge, doubts started spreading. An anonymous board member called me late one night. She told us the county redrew the lines years ago, and you were just an absentee owner trying to cause trouble. Some of us are starting to think that's not the whole story. My attorney sent a formal cease and desist packet to the association, to Margaret personally, and to their lawyer. Attached were the survey, drone images, county confirmations, and selected camera clips. We demanded they stop all enforcement actions pending resolution of the boundary dispute. Their response was a blistering letter accusing me of harassment, defamation, and disrupting community harmony. My attorney smiled when he read it. "Truth is an absolute defense," he said. A new camera I installed near the shed caught the next escalation. Margaret with a different contractor, pointing angrily at Tom's orange stake. "Pull that thing out and move the pins back to where they belong." The contractor hesitated. "Ma'am, that's a licensed survey marker. We're not supposed to touch those." Margaret cut him off. "Nobody will know. Just do it. Tampering with a survey marker in Oregon is a criminal misdemeanor." I forwarded the clip to the sheriff the same day. I filed suit. Action to quiet title, trespass, slander of title, and mandatory injunction requiring removal of the encroachment. The courtroom was smaller and plainer than television makes them look. Just fluorescent lights, wood paneling, and the quiet weight of consequence. Margaret sat ramrod straight beside her attorney, clutching a small silver cross necklace like a lifeline. Her lawyer spoke softly, painting her as a stressed widow and dedicated volunteer who had simply trusted faulty professional advice. My attorney said little. He introduced the exhibits one by one: original deed, recorded plat, Tom's license survey, drone overlays, county clerk confirmations. Then he played the videos. When Margaret's own voice filled the room. "Pull that orange stake out. I'll handle him." Even her lawyer looked away. The judge asked Margaret directly whether she had authorized construction beyond the recorded boundary. Margaret stammered that she had believed the line was different. The judge followed up. Had she applied for a variance? No. Obtained an easement? No. Instructed anyone to remove a survey marker? Margaret's mouth opened, then closed. Finally, barely audible, yes. The ruling came down firm and final. Because the encroachment was built on fraudulent boundary representations, with no supporting permits or agreements, and because evidence showed deliberate attempts to conceal and alter markers, the court ordered complete removal of all encroaching structures and restoration of the land to its original condition within 30 days. Margaret was permanently enjoined from entering my property. I was awarded costs and left free to pursue further damages. As we filed out, Margaret's attorney pulled me aside in the hallway. She can't possibly afford to demolish her own house. I had come prepared. I offered to purchase the entire property at current raw land value only, no credit for the house or improvements, in exchange for waiving enforcement of the demolition order and settling all civil claims. One non-negotiable condition: Margaret would sign a public statement acknowledging the violation and resign permanently from any HOA leadership role. She refused at first, called it cruel and humiliating through tears. Her lawyer laid out the real numbers: demolition costs, hauling fees, lost equity, potential criminal referral for the marker tampering. She signed the next morning in the judge's chambers, hand shaking so badly the pen skipped across the page. Title transferred a month later. I had the illegal sections removed cleanly: patio, sunroom, oversized garage addition. What remained of the original house I kept and transformed. Painted the exterior deep barn red with forest green trim, colors no covenant would ever allow. Inside the front room, I created a small display: timeline of events, copies of key documents, aerial photos, and in a glass case on the wall, Tom's original orange steak. A simple brass plaque beneath it reads, "This line did not move." Margaret sold what belongings she could and left town quietly. No one I asked knew exactly where she went. The association elected a new president, rewrote some of the more aggressive bylaws, and things settled down. These days I walk the boundary when the mood strikes. The old oak still leans eastward. The crooked fence post still refuses to stand straight. The dirt feels the same under my boots as it did the day I first walked it. Out here the nights are quiet again, the sky wide enough to make a man feel small in the best way. I sit on the porch most evenings with a cup of coffee gone cold, listening to the wind move through the sage. Property is a simple thing when you boil it down. It's written once, recorded once, and respected whether you're standing on it or not. Everything else, bluster, titles, committee votes, is just noise. That's the story of how one determined woman tried to rewrite reality with confidence and paperwork, and how the ground itself refused to go along. What do you think? Was I right to take it all the way to court and force the issue? Or should I have cut a deal earlier to avoid the fight? Have you ever run into an HOA that thought it could redraw lines on its own? Ever had a neighbor decide your property was up for grabs? Drop your thoughts below. I read every comment. Tell me where you stand on property rights, on standing your ground when someone tries to take what's yours, on what justice really looks like when authority meets hard facts. I'd love to hear your stories and your opinions.